Hi guys, today we're going to be talking about Aruba. Aruba has a very rich both physical history as well as language history. We're going to be getting into that. The motto for Aruba is One Happy Island, and I think you guys will be able to see by the pictures and the rich tourism industry that it is one happy island. I actually have two people in my family that have been there, and they said it was like the most amazing spot in the Caribbean and that they absolutely adored it. And it's very underrated, so that was one of the reasons I wanted to choose Aruba. So, where is Aruba located? So, Aruba is in the Caribbean. It is north of Venezuela and southwest of the Dominican Republic. So, it's actually slightly above Colombia as well. So, this is CBU, this is California. In relation, it's in the Caribbean. This would be Florida. This is the Dominican Republic. This is Venezuela and Colombia. And Aruba is kind of smack dab in the middle and a little bit more west. That's the Aruban flag. And so Aruba is very small. It's actually 20 miles long, and it is primarily dry desert. But a fun fact is that's actually the sunniest island in the whole Caribbean. So if you're looking, Caribbean's kind of known for like their storms. Aruba is really not really ever having storms. It's the sunniest island, which I think is very interesting and probably an amazing vacation spot. The history of Aruba is super rich, and we're going to get into it. So the first people on Aruba were the Cataqueto Indians, and I may be pronouncing that wrong. That was in 2500 BC. And this is like a picture of their tribe. They were just the first people there, and they didn't have too much to say about that on Aruba.com, which is where I got this from. But I think we can assume that kind of with all the other history we know, we can kind of put two and two together of what was going on. And then there's going to be the Spanish exploration in 1500 AD. And again, I think there wasn't too much about this, but I think we can kind of use what we know about how the Spanish explored and how they treated the natives to kind of realize that this probably wasn't for the best. The Dutch occupied Aruba in 1636. And so that was just the Dutch came and colonized. There's a lot of Dutch colonies. Netherlands was one of the main places colonizing. And so this doesn't really surprise me, especially in the Caribbean. As you'll see in just a second, there was a lot of wars and a bit of turmoil in between 1636 and 1860. And Aruba kind of tried to declare independence. But in 1816, Netherlands regained control. And then in 1845, Aruba joined the Netherlands Antilles, which we'll talk about in a second, kind of cementing them as part of Netherlands officially. And so this is the Netherlands Antilles. I'll move my screen so you can see. Basically, it's the Greater Antilles is going to be Jamaica, Cuba, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and the Bahamas. The Lesser Antilles is actually going to be where Aruba is, as well as some of the other smaller islands. And that's just basically saying what is under Dutch control. And so now we're going to talk about the official languages of Aruba. And I put my sources right here, and I have a works cited at the end. So the two main languages of Aruba are Papiamento and Dutch. Papiamento is considered an African Portuguese Creole language. It evolved from a pidgin to become a Creole. It is a language of the locals, and it is primarily used in casual conversation, which we'll talk about in a second. It is slowly being reintroduced into the education system. Dutch is one of the main languages. As I'm sure we can assume because of the colonization history, this is the sole language of education, and it's the language of business. So this is the more formal language, kind of like how English is used here for all of the official endeavors, and then there's a lot of sub-languages and slangs and creoles and pidgins. That's kind of how it is here. And Papiamento is kind of evolved from English, Spanish, and Dutch, so it's kind of a combination of all three. So there are some popular Papiamento phrases that if you go onto Aruba, you're surely going to hear them say. Kind of like Hawaii, they kind of like play into like the gimmick of it, but it's still super interesting. There's Bonbini, which means welcome. Kontabai, which means how are you. Donkey, which means thank you. And Aruba Tadushi, which means Aruba is lovely. This is going to be a YouTube video of a guy named Kenneth from Aruba speaking Papiamento. He actually talks about Aruba in this video. It's very interesting. You guys can go ahead and watch it before you respond to this post on the discussion board. I'm not going to click onto it. It would just be too much with the screen recording. But yeah, it's a very interesting video. It's really cool. He says some of these phrases, so it's really cool to kind of hear him say some of that, as well as he talks about Aruba. So let's talk about the context for the Reuben language. And I'm going to move my thing as well. Hold on. Okay, so casual is Papiamento is used between locals, and locals prefer Papiamento as their primary language. So if a local is talking to local, neighbor to neighbor, teen to teen, it's going to be in Papiamento. The schools are under Dutch education because they're Dutch under the Dutch education, it is primarily Dutch. However, when they're in the younger grades, they actually learn English and Spanish and popular phrases, and they just learn how to speak it. And then when they get older, they can either choose to speak French or German. However, Papiamento is becoming more included and is being added into the curriculum. Their media is mostly Papiamento. There's 2 Dutch radio stations and 2 English stations, but the news and most of the print media is going to be in Papiamento as well. There is an international school of Aruba, which speaks all languages, and they primarily speak, I believe, in English, and this is a picture of the school. Next, we're going to talk about languages and tourism. So Aruba has a robust tourism industry that affects the whole language system. So there's many common languages spoken for tourists. English and Spanish, which are majority languages, meaning we'll talk about this, most Arubans actually speak 4 languages, English and Spanish being the other 2. And so because of that, if you're a tourist that comes to Aruba that speaks English or Spanish, you're going to technically be seen as a majority language and not just like as a tourist language. But some of the most common tourism languages are going to be German, Italian, Swedish, Chinese, and French. I think most of this is probably due to proximity of the Netherlands to these countries, as well as just popularity over the years of who has come to their island to vacation, and they've adapted to that. So here's some language data, and again, I've put the sources linked for this. As for multilingualism, there's not exact numbers behind it, but I think what it says is that most locals actually speaks 4 languages. So if you're a local on the island, if you lived in Aruba for a long time and have fully developed language abilities, you're going to speak Papiamento, Dutch, and then English and Spanish. So I put that there. Then there's going to be some people that are bilingual. And then this is not as many. Most of the locals are going to be multilingualism. But maybe if you don't interact much with the tourists, or if you're still developing language ability, you'll speak Papiamento and Dutch. And then monolingualism. Some of the locals, deep locals, who never probably interact with tourists at all and probably just interact among their small community would just speak Papiamento, but more likely it's just the tourists that speak one language and they're going to speak their language of the country. As we can see, probably the majority of those countries are going to be these ones right here. Thank you for watching this presentation. I hope you really enjoyed it. This is just one of many pictures of Aruba throughout this presentation. Aruba is a beautiful place, and if you ever get a chance, you should visit it because it looks amazing. Here's a full list of my works cited. I used aruba.com for a lot of it. I used the BBC News to kind of find out about the media. I used World Atlas to find out about language data, and then I used Wikitongues for the video. Thank you guys.